What's up, everybody? You are listening to List It, a show where me and my guests rank and list things in pop culture. And this is a one I've been looking forward to for a while. You probably know my next guest if you have opened the app Instagram in the last 3 years, because he was running or is running one of the most popular profiles, making commentary at the intersection of faith, fashion, and culture. My guest today is Ben Kirby, the man behind Preachers and Sneakers, and also the author of the brand new book, Preachers and Sneakers, Authenticity in an Age of For-Profit Faith and Wannabe Celebrities. What a title. Ben, welcome to List It, man. Yeah.
Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate you having me. Thanks for giving me some time. And again, it's a pleasure to meet you finally after listening to hours and hours of you speak on the Relevant Pod and all those other podcasts.
Hey, after listening to hours and hours of me, I'm surprised you even wanted to talk to me. Like, oh gosh, this is gonna be exhausting.
I'm chalking this up as my spiritual act of worship for the month. That's my charity case.
Well, Ben, we got a fun show. We're gonna talk through. Each of us are gonna talk through kind of our 5 favorite sneakers. But before we jump in, I want to talk about Preachers and Sneakers, because it was an Instagram account that had really exploded into not just the book, but you have a really cool merch line. You've had podcasts. When you first started the account, which for people who haven't seen it basically shows pictures of notable pastors and people in church leadership wearing very expensive items of clothing, including some pretty fresh kicks. That's right. Like, you say what you will about modern evangelicalism, the sneaker game is on point. So, Ben, for people who kind of don't know the story, and I'm sure you've told it many times, but just kind of the truncated version of why you launched it and what it was like when it started blowing up.
Yeah. 2 years ago, here in Dallas, I was in the middle of my MBA program here at SMU. And at the same time, while I was trying to pay for school, I was moonlighting as a DJ. And so one weekend, I DJ'd super late one Saturday night here in Dallas. And the next morning, slept through church. And for whatever reason, that morning, I decided to check my church box by watching worship videos on YouTube. I had never done that before, ever. And haven't done that since, but this morning in particular, I felt compelled to start looking up worship videos on YouTube. And so I did, and I found this Elevation song, and I noticed very quickly that the worship leader was wearing a pair of Yeezys that were one of the more limited variations of Kanye's esteemed sneaker line, and they were reselling at the time for $800 to $1,000. And I'm this nothing dude, no platform. I've got maybe 300 to 400 personal followers who just know me as a person. And I made a quick video, basically being like, "Hey, Elevation Worship, how can your guys afford $800 shoes? Let me get on the payroll." Something stupid. Wasn't supposed to go anywhere. Nobody was supposed to care. But I started looking at other videos that YouTube served up and realized that there was this whole culture of super fresh pastors wearing really dope kicks and expensive streetwear and designer bags and all that kind of stuff. And so what it eventually turned into was I created an account reposting pastors' own pictures of themselves and then putting the price tag of what they were wearing next to it. And just putting those two pictures together and the tension of those two things caused people to lose their minds. And I didn't even really say that much. I maybe said 1 or 2 sentence captions that people thought were funny, and it has 2 years later turned into more of a conversation piece about the modern church's relationship to wealth and fame and celebrity culture and social media and all that kind of stuff. But at the beginning, it had no thought, it had no strategy. It wasn't supposed to be a thing, but clearly thousands and thousands of people had already been thinking about this type of topic, and unbeknownst to me, I was the person thrown into the middle of it.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too is I feel like people who either heard about it or kind of came in late, they might think that it's just a straight indictment, not just on some of these kind of quote unquote celebrity pastors, but also an indictment on streetwear and high fashion. But the irony, and as people will see today, is you're kind of a sneakerhead. The reason that you were able to recognize those Yeezys in the Elevation Worship video is because, would you self-describe as a sneakerhead?
I I can't claim like OG sneakerhead status. I've been into sneakers since like 2015.
Okay.
And it was this random moment when I was in the Marines that I have a buddy in the NBA that actually gifted us some sneakers, and that's what kind of got us into it. And then I got interested in like the entrepreneurial piece about it, where you can basically buy certain kicks and then resell them for profit. But the reason I was able to notice these sneakers and continue to be able to like post about this kind of stuff is because I was really into sneakers at the time. This was in 2019. And so once you're into the kind of sneaker culture, sneaker Twitter, all that kind of stuff, it's pretty easy to point out or to identify the more prominent sought after kicks. And so I imagine OG sneakerheads would not call me a sneakerhead, but I am a big fan of sneakers and I have an obsessive personality. And so I probably researched it too much to the point where it was pretty easy for me to identify that kind of stuff.
Well, what's interesting about it is because the tension that kind of the whole construct of preachers and sneakers, I feel like for people who haven't really done a deep dive and really kind of developed appreciation of what you've done, is they see this as, well, pastors shouldn't be wearing nice things and they shouldn't be wearing, off-white Jordans on stage or whatever, $1,300, Air Fear of God ones or whatever on stage, because it's going to make them look like they're flaunting their wealth. But it also felt like, there's probably people that were like, well, anybody shouldn't have shoes that cost $1,300. But is this a tension that you've kind of wrestled with, knowing that even if you're kind of reselling them, like I like sneakers too, and I have a couple pair, that it's I wouldn't say it's like an embarrassing amount of money, but it's certainly like, okay, but that was a lot for a pair of shoes. So I'm not like, I don't mean that in a judgmental way, but I feel like, how did you kind of navigate that tension personally?
Yeah. And that's something I've gone through the past 2 years, pretty much every single day, where people show up with kind of a preconceived notion or a bias about the account, or an unwillingness to think about it for a second. And the assumption is that I am a person sitting on his high horse saying, no person of faith should ever have really nice stuff or really expensive shoes. And I've never said that. And, but what I have said is that, you should consider what you put on before you get on stage to preach about Jesus, because what you put on sends a message to those people, and people are watching, especially when you have like global influence on social media or in just like your regular media. I've wrestled with that pretty much every single day too, where it's like, I like nice stuff. I started this account when I was in business school. I would like to make a profit. At some point I just had a kid. And so I need to be able to like physically buy diapers and such. Like, stuff costs money. And so I've never vilified anybody for making money. I mean, I want pastors to get paid. I want pastors to have a really, really hard job. And most of them don't make squat. And I'm very much in the camp of compensating them well, because we put all these irrational expectations on them, and they also, without all that, have a really hard job as it is, that has no real like clock in, clock out type thing.
I mean, in your mind, is kind of the wearing kind of high-end streetwear on stage, is it more about the perception and kind of, because sometimes I'm like, there's just like a lack of self-awareness with past. I'm like, John Gray wearing like, a Louis Vuitton tracksuit with a Gucci belt or whatever. You're like, exactly. I don't know what kind of I don't have any beef with him or probably his message, but again, the perception from the audience is probably, who's this guy?
You put yourself in most rational people's minds, and most rational people be like, why? What is that? And it's like, none of it, like, I have no authority to say that that's wrong of him to do. But what I can say is that there's a lot of people back here in the stands that at least makes them feel gross, or it makes them feel excluded, because they'll never be able to afford that kind of thing. And at a minimum, if your position has historically been supported by the donations of people that go to your church, that doesn't rub people the right way, objectively, regardless of your theology. If you live off the donations of others, or people think that you live off the donations of others, they're going to have questions if you start to seem like you're living in luxury. But again, I can't say that it's evil to wear something that says Louis Vuitton from a big stage. But what I can say is, like, there's patterns to recognize here. And there's also like, I think, meaningful critique to say, look, is this about you, or is this about pointing to Jesus, bro? Because at a minimum, this is a distraction. So, but to your first point, it's like, people come all the time to, and in the comments, we'll say, nobody should ever have a pair of $1,200 shoes.
Yeah. These
guys are supposed to be pastors. They should be selling everything and giving to the poor. I do not agree with that. And, if you assign the comment section to what I believe, then of course you're going to think I'm this like pretentious hypocrite that is sitting on his high horse, but that's not me at all.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate what you've been able to do with the account, because I feel like it's brought up a lot of interesting conversations, not just, our relationship with pastors and wealth, but also our relationship with luxury and craftsmanship. Because, I think there was this kind of thinking in, American evangelicalism that like frugality was always a virtue, where it's like, you would hear Christians brag like, oh, I only paid $5 for this. And like, well, it was probably
made that.
Yeah, it was probably made with unfair labor practices. It was cranked at probably ignoring environmental regulations, and
it's going to end up in a landfill.
Yeah, where if you buy, a piece of nice luxury, you'll probably have it your whole life. For one, it was, a lot of these companies hire the best leather workers in the world who make stuff by hand, and like I remember I was talking to somebody and we're talking, is it more ethical to own like a Rolex or a like $5 Casio, where the Casio is made in cheap parts and it's gonna break, where a Rolex is made by hand by people who have been making watches like that for hundreds of years, and you're supporting this. It gets a lot more nuanced once you start thinking about it,
Yeah. And that's my deal, is I want people to even just like give some brain cells to that thought.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us just want to buy the cheapest thing or get the best possible deal. But there are some like downstream or upstream considerations. And I didn't care about that stuff before being involved with this account, but like the whole ethical fashion thing, I think Christians specifically should really care about that, because we're talking about human conditions.
Yeah.
And, not every Nike piece is made, I don't think, in the most like ethically sustainable way. But, and like, to be clear, I wasn't this altruistic theologian about this account from the beginning. I had to develop a theology around this, because at first my only thought was like, dude, this is weird, man. $800 shoes. And so I hope people hear me when I say it's like, I'm not this like so anointed, inspired theologian about this. Like it took me a long time to say, hey, this account can be used to get people discussing deeper things than just bickering about whether or not a guy can be wearing nice sneakers on stage.
Yeah. Well, Ben, it's been so fun to watch, and I'm sure maybe at some point during this conversation you can tell us, but I'm sure you've gotten a lot of interesting DMs from some pastors who've been featured on your page. I think I have a theory that when a pastor ends up on Preacher's Sneakers, their first feeling is they're stoked, and then they're probably like, oh, well, maybe he's got a point here. Maybe I shouldn't have worn that new that whole essentials drop during my latest sermon. Like I feel like a lot of them probably are jazzed to be on there at first, but
especially like the lower tier guys for sure. But the top 1% guys, I don't know if they appreciate that kind of attention, but they do like attention. So
I was gonna say, look, man, it's not like they're putting themselves on stage. No one forced them to wear Jordan 1s on Sunday morning. So I think it's fair game. Well, look, man, let's go ahead and jump into our list here. I have a list of 5 of my favorite sneakers of all time. I'm in your boat where I would not consider myself a sneakerhead, but I have an appreciation for sneakers.
Yeah.
My collection is not huge, but I like the ones that I have. So let's go ahead and start with number 5 on your list, and tell me what's your number 5 favorite sneaker of all time.
Number 5, it doesn't have as much like history and allure to it, but number 5 for me is the Adidas Ultra Boost, which came out in 2015, because that, for those that haven't worn Ultra Boost, is one of the most comfy sneakers in the game for just like walking around. Yeah. And they had like a big, right when they came out, they kind of revolutionized that like category of sneaker, I guess, because they were so, the technology was new and the boost material, and the comfort was just like out of this world. And so that's what I would say. Number 5, I wear them pretty much every single day. I've had 2 or 3 pairs and I've beat them to death because they're just like objectively the most comfortable shoe I've ever had.
Well, and the cool thing is with Ultra Boost, it really, my wife just got a new pair, and
Nice.
and the cool thing about Ultra Boost and Adidas in general is like for a long time, Adidas didn't have the cachet that some of these other brands did in the sneaker world. But you look at their collaborations with Kanye, obviously Yeezy, it may be bigger than Adidas at this point.
It's a multi-billion-dollar brand. I don't know how much, but
but it's significant. But you look at their collaborations with Pharrell and the shoes that he's done, and their kind of reinvention of the brand with Ultra Boost really as like a cornerstone has been cool to watch because
it brought them back into relevancy.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you.
No. Go.
I'm just agreeing with your point. It's like they had the standard lineup of 5 shoes that Adidas was known for, but then Ultra Boost was like, now sneakerheads are paying attention to Adidas again, and now they're doing collaborations with Pharrell with the Human Races, and then Kanye eventually making just skyrocketing Adidas. It was interesting to watch, and that was like right at the time that I started getting into sneakers, and so Ultra Boost and then NMDs, which is another Boost product that Adidas makes, were pretty high up there for me.
Well, it's an excellent choice, and it's a good one too, because if you're a preacher and you wear those on stage, they're not quite flashy enough to land you on preachers and see. I think you can get a pair of Ultra Boosts for like $130 or something,
Yeah, there's usually pretty good sales about, now there's enough Ultra Boosts out there that there's pretty good sales. There's a few pairs of limited Ultra Boosts, like the 1.0s that from 2015 that would still command a pretty penny.
Yeah.
But yeah, any of the ones that you buy at the outlet or retail Adidas store, you probably get a pass.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So keep that in mind, aspiring celebrity pastors. You're safe for now if you're wearing
your career aspiration. Then that's
if
one
you're
thing
going
you don't have to worry about.
Yeah. If you're going to Bible school, if you're in seminary right now and you're getting a degree in celebrity pastor, just get a pair of Ultra Boost.
Dreaming of those celebrity pastor perks. Yeah. Just get some Ultra Boost.
Well, number 5 on my list, and you can tell me this is lame, Ben, because I get mixed feedback, but I'm wearing these my whole life, and I feel like they're a safe choice, which is the Vans Skate High. It's it's a high top canvas shoe, very classic looking. I usually wear a black with just the white stripe. It's a high top. You can wear
price.
Oh, dude, they're like $65. You know what you're getting every time. But I also, in this world, I kind of feel like Vans got a bad rap as like youth pastor shoes. Do you think what's your thought?
Specifically beat up Vans with holes in them as youth pastor shoes,
which I have many of. Because I was kind of on the fence on my item here because I was going to try to do slip-ons, try to do skate highs because I like both of them. What are your thoughts on Vans as a sneakerhead? Because I know it's not like Vans is like controversial in the sneaker world, but they don't have the same. There's not the same excitement around like a new Vans like Simpsons collaboration as there is with some of these other brands. What are your thoughts on Vans?
Yeah, I know that's a big maybe LA thing. Like a lot of the hip hop guys from LA and stuff will religiously claim Vans. I've had a few pair. I really like how they feel. I've got flat feet, and I don't know if Vans are conducive for flat feet, but I think they're comfortable for me. And it's just hard to go wrong because they go with a lot of stuff, like especially if you wear jeans most of the time, that just basically goes, you can put Vans on. Like to me, it's almost like a minimalist type choice because it can go with anything. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
It's like the black and white Van goes with just about everything. And the highs, I don't know if I'd ever wear them with shorts, but with pants for sure. I just prefer the lows, I guess, with shorts, but I'm a big fan of those.
Well, and here's the other thing: when it's time to retire them to grass cutters, you don't feel weird.
Right.
Like if I'm retiring a pair of Jordans, it's like I'm still not going to cut the grass in them. You know what I'm saying? Not. Like I might shelve them, or
really
just like
point.
But a pair of Vans, you're like, oh yeah, I can. These are grass cutter status now. Okay,
absolutely.
Ultra Boost at number 5. What do you got at number 4, Ben?
Number 4, in kind of the same vein, I put the Nike Air Yeezy from 2009. And so this was Kanye's first initial deal with Nike before he went to Adidas. And this was Kanye kind of, and he always does, made headlines by designing this kind of unique looking sneaker that wasn't made for athletics. It was made for fashion. And it was kind of a super fresh design that nobody had ever seen, really kind of high, and you can look it up and you won't be able to pull it off. Most people can't pull it off, but there was such
the most famous ones are bright red, right? Is that the
Red Octobers?
Yeah, and they are the grailed of grailed in terms of like the shoe that is the one. It is the one that every collector wants. Is this red Nike Air Yeezy? I feel like one of its most prominent features is sort of these like, I don't know how to describe it, but almost sort of like these like fins on the back heel that give it this very distinct look. That is very
cool.
cool.
Much not an athletic shoe by any means, but that was, I think, Nike's first delve into like, hey, let's make a sneaker that's specifically fashion facing. And if you found a pair of Red Octobers or any of the Nike Air Yeezys brand new, that's like an investment piece. Like those will never ever go down in value because they're so limited. They were limited back then and impossible to get. So now you have to pay like, for Red October, it's probably $10,000 to get them. I haven't looked at StockX for them, but there was one pastor on my page early on that had like all the pairs and was preaching in all the pairs, and that.
Can you reveal who it was? I'm sure I can.
It was John Gray. It was John Gray.
We're putting it, poor guy on blast.
He has all the pairs of the Nike Air Yeezys, it seems like, and those are just like objectively the most sought after, one of the most sought after sneakerhead grails. So it belongs on the list because it revolutionized sneaker collaborations in my eyes, and also it's one of those pieces that I'll never be even close to having, but. Blank check moment, I'm probably buying some of those.
Yeah, well, totally. Even just to have it, even if you never wore them, I feel weird about putting it on my feet. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But you bring up an interesting point with the Nike Air Yeezys because, Kanye West has had not just a very interesting relationship to the fashion industry. I feel like he's probably as well known for his contributions to fashion and streetwear as he is for music these days.
Yeah.
But also his relationship with a lot of the guys that have been featured on your page. I mean, he's very notably had a pretty he's dramatically embraced Christianity and released, Jesus is King. And, but he's not the only pop star. Obviously Justin Bieber hangs out with a lot of these guys. And, so, when you're kind of setting up the account and you're kind of noticing these trends, the other aspect, and you allude to it in the subtitle of your book, is wannabe celebrities. And I'm assuming that's a reference to pastors who align themselves with actual celebrities to try to get some of that clout. So what is kind of your thoughts on the celebrity, well, how about this? The pastoral infiltration of celebrity culture. I was going to say the celebrities infiltrating church culture. I don't think they were doing that. I don't think anyone's like, hey, we got to infiltrate the church. That'll make us cool.
No, it'll be tight. Yeah. Let's go hang out at church.
Yeah, but pastors very intentionally, and I know some of these guys too, that have been featured on your page, and probably and I like a lot of these guys personally, but when you see one of these pastors, kind of posting a picture with Bieber, and it isn't just purely kind of like a ministry thing at that point, right? A lot of them, it's kind of them hanging out, doing whatever. What are your kind of thoughts, not just on the fashion aspect, but that celebrity aspect of the whole preachers and sneakers culture?
Yeah, fame is one of those weird currencies that you can just get by proximity, and you don't have to. It's like the Paris Hilton effect. Like you can be famous for being famous in a way. And if you hang out with famous people, eventually the tabloids and media agencies start to notice and start to ask questions like, hey, who's this other guy or girl that's running around with Bieber or Kanye or whatever? And there's a whole stable of guys that, for very good reason, were able to influence Kanye and Bieber, and in turn got their own pretty high level of fame and ended up in their own headlines for being the personal pastor to X or Y celebrity. And the thing about Kanye, when he had his very public conversion, it was hard, as a guy that leans cynical, it was hard to not have the knee-jerk reaction to say, dude, it looks like these guys are kind of using Kanye as a prop to say, hey, look how successful we can make Christianity cool. One of the coolest guys in the world is now talking the Jesus talk. And here I am, and I had my little bit of influence with him. I got my pick, so I can prove it. And so like at a minimum, people are gonna be like, wow, that is crazy. You're hanging out with Kanye. You're a pastor, dude.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting thing to see, and I write about it a bit in the book for a shameless plug, is that like fame in and of itself seems to be an end state for a lot of us. I mean, like at least in even outside of church, like a lot of us love fame. A lot of us want to be famous because it seems like we'll have power, we'll have money, all that kind of stuff. And it's weird how that whole culture has come into a church context where we could see it as a way to use it as a tool. Like, hey, if we can convert Kanye or Bieber, we can use his reach to reach the world for Christ. And to me, that very quickly can turn into kind of using people. And I don't love that idea.
Yeah. It's tough because you know, there's a tension there where it's like, the ultimate mission of a Christian is the Great Commission, to spread the gospel. So I can understand like, if we kind of align ourselves with these people, it'll further our reach to further our mission. And if we dress a certain way, we'll become more appealing to more people and it'll further reach and mission. But it does seem like what you've been able to kind of demonstrate is, but there are lines here too. Like it's not, the Great Commission is, it looked just
not
like
an aesthetic.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, and it's not something that I feel like is necessarily needs to have like business strategy meetings of, okay, we'll get with this influencer with this, merch drop. It'll have a Bible verse, and we'll, it's an organic thing,
Yeah, and it's effective to do that. Like that, there's a reason we do it in the mainstream. Is because like it's effective to have influencer marketing, to have limited merch drops, and have really slick digital marketing strategies, that kind of stuff. But like to be charitable, I think there is an element of that allowed some of these guys and able to get in the same circles as Bieber and Kanye to influence their lives. Like we can't throw all that out the door because somebody else would have been able to reach them had it not been for, maybe these guys being super cool and dressing super cool and having networks that could kind of get them connected, and then them be able to like play in the same sandbox and not freak out like a fanboy or whatever. I think there's some utility to that. And I don't think you can argue that these guys, or some of these guys, were able to influence Kanye and Bieber specifically to help redirect their life. And so none of us can argue with that. I think if you put a lot of weight on their outfits though, and the lifestyles that they live, I think that's pretty thin compared to like, oh, this guy's actually really cool and charismatic and is a good communicator, all that kind of stuff, which is way more important than the shoes on your feet. Like, could Carl or Chad have done any of this stuff with Vans on their feet? Absolutely, I think. Yeah. Or Rich Wilkerson Jr., Vans on his feet only, I think he could have gotten the same result. So it's just an interesting thing to talk about. And I don't vilify people for dressing cool, but I think to say this is what opened the door is a pretty thin argument.
Yeah. I remember this is probably like 20 years ago now, but my roommate from college was working at the Dream Center in LA, which is this, at the time, it was this old...
Oral Roberts, right? Didn't you go to Oral Roberts?
Yeah. I went to ORU. Go Golden Eagles, man.
Charismatics.
Well, hey, look, we call us whatever we want after that NCAA run, The whole...
Arkansas, we played y'all.
Yeah. Oh, did you go to Arkansas?
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. What year did you graduate, just out of curiosity?
11.
Okay. So I was a little bit before you, but Arkansas would play ORU pretty frequently when I was at school, and so I always liked it because it was awesome. Like I felt like it's a legit opponent, Arkansas.
And it's right down the road from y'all.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, my roommate was working at the Dream Center in LA, which houses like homeless community and had a lot of resources for people struggling with addiction, and had a lot of outreaches on Skid Row. They were doing incredible things there in the community, and we're walking around. He showed me the facility, and outside they had like a stretch Hummer with just like at the time, like these big chrome wheels, and it looked like something out of a music video. And I was like, Justin, dude, what's the story with this, Hummer? And he's like, and again, this is like 20 years ago. He's like, one of the guys from Korn, I think it was Brian Head Welch, had converted to Christianity, and he called up the Dream Center and just said, hey, I want to give you guys this vehicle I have. And so Justin went over to his house, and he's like, this is cool. He's like, we'll have to sell this, and we'll use the money to and he said, And this stuck with me for a long time because the response from the guy from Korn was, no. I want you to use this to go into certain neighborhoods to pick up kids and bring them to church. And I want you to bring them home in it. He's like, if you go through and try to pick them up in a church van, no one's going to want to come. If you come with this cool car and you can show them that this is cool and we're fun and, we have a degree of awareness about what would appeal to you, that's what I want for this. And I remember thinking, like, I feel like that kind of mindset translates, but obviously there are limitations and dangers to it too,
Yeah.
And
I mean, I don't know if you can argue with that. Like, if I'm a 14-year-old kid, I'm not getting in a church van, bro.
Yeah.
So like, but I think if your ministry is based on surface level stuff like that, it's probably going to erode eventually. Like, you can get people to church by offering them free chicken tenders.
Yeah.
But if you don't call them to anything, then they're just going to get back out there doing their thing. Like, it's one part of it, and attraction is effective.
Yeah.
But if we focus too much on that, then I think we're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah. Well, all right, Ben. So my number 4, I'll jump back to my list is, and I mentioned it's a controversial shoe. One that feels very polarizing. You
thrive off of the controversy.
I love controversy. I love polarizing. Mix it up, man. Let's chop it up. Yeah. Okay. It's the Jordan 11, which is for people who aren't familiar with the Jordan line. You probably know the shoe. It famously has a strip of shiny sort of patent leather that surrounds the shoe. It came out in 1995, and this was like prime. I was like 12 years old when this came. I remember this shoe when it came out because I used to get a magazine
for it.
Oh, I used to get Sports Illustrated for kids, right? It was like this magazine, and they had this whole feature on the shoe. He wore it in the movie Michael Jordan wore the shoe in Space Jam. It was during his like baseball phase, but also during the 95-96 comeback season when they won a championship. He got like uniform violations for it, like fined because they were not within NBA dress code at now NBA dress code, you can wear Ronald McDonald shoes if you want, but back then it had to be like all black, and it was very cool because this was like a dress shoe and a basketball shoe, totally fresh design. It's from Tinker Hatfield, who is one of the most important names in all of kind of sneakerdom. If people are looking to learn more about him, he's a designer at Nike. There's a great episode of the Netflix series Abstract that profiles designers on Tinker Hatfield.
And I need to check it out.
Yeah, it's really good. But Ben, Jordan 11, are you a fan, or do you think they're kind of gaudy?
I have an immense respect for it because it is such an important shoe. The patent leather is so in the Marine Corps, we actually had to wear patent leather shoes as part of our dress uniform.
And they had to be spotless.
Spick and span. Yeah. And, patent leather is a little easier to keep spotless than like regular leather. But as far as wearing the shoe, I could never, ever pull it off. I'm not much of a hooper. I like playing basketball, but I could never walk around securely with some Jordan 11s, highs or lows, because it's very much a basketball shoe. And, for average dudes like me, I just can't pull it off. I don't have any pairs of those, but I think I've probably resold some, like the Concords. They re-released the Concord 11s, and then the Space Jam 11s are really popular and really cool because they have that like icy sole on the bottom. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
And there's something about Carolina blue in a shoe where the originals have like Carolina blue. Obviously, Michael Jordan went to North Carolina, but that's just a very cool color with white and black.
And a lot of sneakerheads really worship the Jordan 11. So I might be an anomaly where I don't care that much about it, but I respect it because that would end up in most people's lists. The Bread Jordan 11s and the Concord Jordan 11s.
Yeah, I know it's an easy pick, but I also know, like I said, some people are like, I don't know, they're overrated. So okay, I'm glad to see you're at least open to the Jordan 11. All right, Ben, what do you got for number 3 on yours, man?
All right, number 3, in the same vein, the 1989 produced, thanks to Jordan or Tinker Hatfield, the Jordan 4, which in my opinion is the best looking sneaker of all time.
Wow.
I think. And I can't even pull them off that well. I've got a couple pairs, and in terms of like, you think about the time, 1989, and how like extremely different this design was. The Jordan 4, if people look it up, you'll definitely recognize it. it was so like ahead of its time, and it's held up through all the decades of people being into sneakers. And so Jordan 4, he played in those. And that was like, in terms of Jordans, I've got another Jordan on this list, but number 3, Jordan 4s, I think is the best looking sneaker pound for pound right now.
When you're going to rock the Jordan 4, what colorway are you going to go? Because I feel like when I picture Jordan 4 in my head, I picture like the black and red, and then that one that's sort of, I don't know the name of the colorway, but it's like that light bluish and gray. I feel like I've seen a lot. If you're going to rock a pair of Jordan 4s, what colorway are you going with?
I only have 2 pairs, and I have the bread Jordan 4s. And a funny story about that is I had a follower of my account email me one day saying, verbatim, I feel like God is leading me to buy you a pair of Jordans.
No way.
And that was it. And I said, I think he was a missionary.
Who am I to argue with God?
And I said something to the effect of like, look, I'm not in this to get anything. Yeah. I didn't ask for this, but here's my P.O. box. and he ended up sending me like StockX verified this pair of red Jordan 4s. And I was incredibly grateful. So that's the only reason I would ever have those. But those are really cool to me because all of his shoes that are black and red just are so clean to me. So bread Jordan 4s. And then I have the Jordan 4s, which are like a mix up of all the popular Jordan 4s, like the cements, the breads, the military blues, all those. And those I've worn out before because it seems like, all right, this isn't as an extreme look and it can go with a couple things. So it's one of those 2 pairs. Yeah.
And that's the shoes that they made for Russell Westbrook in the line are some of my favorite because it is like these wild mashups. That is, they almost feel a little irreverent for shoe design, but I have a pair that I'm like, when I wore them out one day, people are like, dude, those look like basketball shoes from the future. I'm like, cool. That's I think kind of
that's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
That's the best feeling if you're wearing a pair of sneakers and somebody notices like some of the details, like, dude, there was one time I was wearing a pair of Jordan 1s and some random dude on the street stopped me and said, dude, are those the new Jordan 1 bread toes? And I said, yeah, man. And this feels way too good from a stranger.
Dude, I got dapped up at an airport one time for wearing Jordan 1s. Like just a guy came out fist out like, okay, I got you. It's the Jordan 1s. Yeah.
It's like so much more validation than you could ever hope for.
Yeah. All right. My number, that was your number 3. Okay. My number 3, this one isn't the coolest pick, but I had to put it on there because I wear them so much and I've owned so many pair. And that is the Nike Air Max 90s, which is a mid-top, kind of a mid-height shoe. But again, another Tinker Hatfield design, really revolutionary design at the time because it kind of married form and function. It's a shoe that everyone would recognize just because it is sort of that iconic Nike kind of high-tech looking design. But the cool thing is I have a pair that I did like the Nike ID thing in. And, and so I kind of designed my own colorway. And look, you can go to Foot Locker and buy a couple pairs of Air Maxes right now. Like they're a very accessible shoe. They're not overly priced. But my opinion is I know they're kind of like generic, but I still feel like Air Maxes are dope. Like, are you an Air Max guy? Are they still in your rotation?
Yeah. And a part of it, I think, is a nostalgia thing and a previous inaccessibility thing. So like when you grow up as a kid begging for Nikes with an air bubble in them and you never get them. Now that you have adult money, you can buy them. Like I think there's part of that playing because Nike Air Max 90s are one of those shoes that I remember like coveting growing up and I never could get them. And so I don't know if I have any pairs currently, but I've had them in the past and they're super cool looking. And I don't know if I can pull them off because they are kind of high and have a lot going on with them. Yeah. But I'm a huge fan. Most things Air Max, I'm a pretty big fan because it's like, it's got Tinker Hatfield all over it. Yeah. And that dude is just an artistic and design genius. And whatever he touches ends up being super cool. And like, there's might be a little bit of hype there, but not really. Like objectively, most of his shoes are really good looking.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I'm a huge Tinker Hatfield fan. And I feel like, and I'm interested in your opinion on this. I feel like, look, if you're an up and coming pastor who wants to look cool from the stage, no one's bashing anyone for like, caring about their appearance, right? Like, that's everyone should give some mind to that. I feel like, a cool pair of Nike Air Max colorways, which, like I said, maybe $80, 80 to 120 range around there. Pretty affordable. It's a pair of shoes, right?
You could find them at the outlet, most likely.
Oh yeah, for sure. And dude, I've gotten some finds at the Nike outlet before. But if you had to name real quick off top of the dome 3 shoes that you could look cool from like the pulpit, but it's not going to be like, oh, well, look at this flex going on up here. What would your top 3 be?
Let's see. Air Max 90 could be up there. Air Max 1s would definitely be up there. That's kind of a borderline casual athletic shoe to me. That's Tinker Hatfield's first shoe.
How do you feel about Stan Smith? Like the, kind of just classic Adidas look. I feel like that still holds up.
It does for the right people. I've never owned them, and I know maybe guys like 10 years older than me really, really like them because I don't know what generation that is. I never got into them, but there's many like Stan Smith stans.
Yeah.
And that could be one. The guys that I really appreciate are the ones that dressed almost minimalistic, but then can put in one detail that makes it stand out.
Yeah.
And so Air Max 1s, you can do that really well with. Air Max 90s, I think if you're the right body type, you could do that well with. I'm trying to think. Air Max 97s would be cool too. They're not very comfortable, but Air Max 97s.
If you're in the pulpit, man, comfort is your last concern. You gotta.
That's right. It's all about appearance in everything in ministry.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll say those.
The gospel isn't supposed to make you comfortable, Ben. And this shoe is a demonstration. I'm biting my lip this whole sermon. Yeah.
That's right.
This is not my comfort zone. All right, Ben. Number 2 on your list. What you got?
Okay, we didn't coordinate these lists beforehand, but number 2 is the Nike Air Max 1 from me, which came out in 1987, and that's I'm pretty sure that's Tinker Hatfield's first like full project for Nike. Like Nike had the waffle sneakers before this that they got really famous on. Then Tinker came, and I don't know if he worked on the Air Max 1 first or the Jordan 1 first, but either way, Air Max 1 is a very recognizable shoe. It's one of the first with the bubble in it.
Yeah,
and I wear that shoe. If I'm going to dress up, I'm usually wearing that shoe because it is comfortable and I can pull it off. It's not super flashy. It's pretty subdued, but it's got all the elements of what a cool looking shoe is to me. And they're not expensive too. I think they retail like 110 oftentimes, unless they're like a collaboration, like if they're some of the like the Pata collaborations or whatever. That's number 2 up there because it goes with everything. It's kind of like a Van almost.
Yeah.
A pair of Vans almost to me, but it's comfortable. They have really clean looking colorways and they're pretty accessible.
Yeah, dude, huge Air Max fans. Like I said, you wear them anywhere and you feel like, oh, this is a good solid fix. All right, now I'm kind of cheating on my number 2 because I kind of lump them in together. Like it's 2 that I'm throwing into one because they came out in the same year. They both came out in 1995. They look kind of similar. And they both were the signature shoe of like a pretty cool NBA big man, right? Like these were, because back in the day when I feel like they were making basketball shoes, perimeter players had different shoes than like centers. Like basketball now is kind of a positionless game, like you got Giannis
at like athletes going at each other.
Yeah, Giannis is 7'2", bringing the ball up the court. Wait, back in my day, if you were 7'2", you didn't get beyond the free. Yeah, exactly. So 2 of the all-time great post-up players, Shawn Kemp and Shaq, who I loved Shaq when I was a kid. I'm a huge Orlando Magic fan, and I loved Shaq when I was a kid. And in 1995, Reebok released for Shawn Kemp a shoe called the Kamikaze, which I'll describe it for listeners here at home. It is a very 90s basketball-looking high top, but it has this very cool sort of angular design up the side. It's almost like triangles kind of jetting up the side of the shoe. It's a very noticeable shoe. Like if you have it on, there's no mistaking that you're wearing Reebok Kamikazes. That same year, Reebok released a shoe called the Shaq Gnosis for Shaq, which is again, a big white high top basketball post player shoe, but instead of these triangles, instead of triangles, it was this kind of circular pattern, sort of echoing outward. Both really recognizable, both audacious, and Shawn Kemp and Shaq are both huge personality dudes. And I just thought I like the era where the shoe would match the personality of the player. Where I feel like we're kind of getting away from that a little bit. Like if I buy a pair of like James Harden, like Adidas, there's nothing about them that's like, oh, that's probably James Harden shoes, or that's you know, Dame's, or you know, who Luka. Well, I guess he's got the new Jordans, but you know, there's elements of the player personality. I thought for when some of my favorite shoes, and this is what to our Tinker Hatfield conversation is, you know, he'll sit down with the athlete to understand the athlete and try to bring their personality into the shoe. You know, like if you watch that great episode of Abstract, you know, he tries to tell Michael Jordan's story through, you know, the reason they put patent leather on that shoe is because at the time Jordan wanted to be a businessman. He knew that he wanted to be an NBA owner one day. And that kind of flair of the patent leather was a tip of the hat to his personal ambitions, where the Kamikazes and Shaqnosis was, look, these are big, loud, noticeable shoes, and big, loud, noticeable dudes are going to wear them. I just thought they were, especially as like, you know, 13-year-olds, like, these are the coolest freaking shoes I've ever seen, man.
And your parents have to be like, dude, we're never buying these for you.
You're
these
never going to own
nothing.
them. Yeah. Where could you possibly wear those? Yeah. But
and growing up in Louisiana, Shaq played at LSU. And so I've been a big fan of Shaq ever since. And that dude kills it at life, seemingly right now. Everything he touches, he's got deals out the wazoo. That man is set for life. And I love his I don't know him as a person, but his apparent posture in life is very generous and is trying to not be exclusive and not be better than anybody. Like there's videos of him DJing at random clubs for nobody. And then there's also videos of him paying off this dude's engagement ring a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And also
just randomly.
Yeah. And he's got a line of Shaq shoes that are in Walmart because he wanted his shoes to be accessible to everybody. It's like, dude, come on. That dude is dope.
He's the best.
Man.
Okay. I have because Kamikazes and Shaqnosis, I would not call these like shoes that are very highly sought after. Like there are probably people who like them for nostalgic.
It's a deep cut.
Yeah. Or people who just like them for nostalgic reasons. Or if a pastor, you know, at one of these big churches comes out on Sunday morning and they're rocking either Kamikazes or Shaqnosis, and they post a picture on the gram, is that Preachers and Sneakers worthy, or is it too kind of obscure of a, you know, statement that they're trying to make?
I think since it's depending on the pastor maybe, but I think since it's a callback to like real sneaker culture, it might actually end up on the page because people will have opinions about that look. Because that look is going to be very hard to pull off. Yeah. And it is, the people that are in my comment section are very quick to comment on someone's outfits.
Well, I'll keep that in mind. If I ever guest speak at a church, which I've never been invited, listeners, you might find that shocking, but they won't let me near it.
Very shocking.
They won't let me. But if I ever am, I'm rocking a pair of those. And Ben, I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to send them to you. I'll let you be the judge. Okay.
Absolutely. I love being the judge.
I love judging. Yeah. All right, Ben, it's a moment of truth. Number one. Okay. I have a feeling I could throw out a guess here, but I'm very confident that I know what it's going to be. But I'll let you throw it out there and see if we got it right.
Yeah, I'm not trying to have any like screaming hot sports opinions here, but number one, because of all that it's done for the culture and how good looking it is, Jordan 1 High, 1985. This sneaker started all of sneaker culture, I would say, and it is held up decade over decade, and his shoes still command a premium because people cannot buy them fast enough. So Jordan 1 High, everybody will recognize his original colorway, the Chicago colorway, red, white, and black, and then the bread colorway, which black and red, which originally was banned from the NBA, which he just leaned into and just paid the fines, which made the shoes even more sought after. But this is between the Air Max 1 and Jordan 1, if I'm going to decide to wear sneakers, it's one of those two pairs of sneakers. One, because I can pull them off, and two, because I think they're just hard to argue with. I mean, they're Jordan 1s are, some people don't think they're comfortable. I think they're comfortable on my feet, and the highs specifically look really cool, and you don't have to do much to them in terms of colors for them to be unique looking. Like some of my favorite pair of Jordan 1 highs are the shattered backboard Jordan 1s, which are just orange and black. And that colorway combined it's pretty rare. So they resell for a lot, but that colorway is so good looking to me. And that's one of my grails that actually, if I ever come into money, I might actually buy those. So Jordan 1 High, I think is pretty hard to argue with. And, you know, he came out with those shoes in 1985 and they're still like people are lining up out the door for them.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was gonna be disappointed if you didn't say Jordan 1s because it is the shoe. It's like kind of like and here's the thing, you can still, there are colorways that are reasonable, like you can still buy, maybe not some of the higher, especially ones that are kind of have that old school kind of Chicago Bulls look. Like, some of those are a little difficult, but you can find some cool, reasonably priced colorways in the Jordan 1s. And that's kind of the cool thing about Jordan 1s is everyone can kind of make them their own, Yeah.
And they make the mid size variation, which people love to, original sneaker heads really clown Jordan Brand for making mids because it's just like
they look like dunks.
Just make it
almost.
A high.
Yeah. And they kind of and they almost look too much like those like low top dunks, where
right. And so it makes it look like this feels like kind of a Dollar General version of the Jordan 1. But they come out with some pretty cool colorways for the mids. And that's what's disappointing to me is because like, dude, just put this on a high and you would make twice as much money if you But they must have a strategy because they're Nike and they
Michael Jordan.
And Michael Jordan. They seem to be making pretty good decisions. But the mids and even the lows you can make work in certain situations. So I'm a big fan. Jordan 1s.
Well, it was kind of, I could have put that on there, but I figured you're going to bring it. So I kind of thrown a curveball on my last one. And I don't own this shoe, but I would love to own it. I don't know if, I'm almost certain there's no way I could seriously pull it off. I've very rarely seen people wear this shoe with a straight face, except there's a couple pastors who I think have them in a tight rotation. And that's the Nike Air Fear of God 1, which is Jerry Lorenzo's collaboration with Nike. And I'm a big fan of like Jerry Lorenzo and obviously Essentials.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and Fear of God. And I was really interested to see what the outcome of his collaboration. And obviously, he's made the jump over to Adidas, which I'm stoked to see what he's going to come up with there. But the Nike Air Fear of God 1s, they almost look like the Air Mags to a degree for people who those are like the Back to the Future kind of Marty McFly.
It's almost like a boot.
Yeah,
a Nike boot almost.
And I thought it was really cool because it was totally fresh. It looked like nothing else on the market, which is very hard to do with a basketball shoe. But the other cool thing is to hear, and if you follow Jerry Lorenzo on Instagram, he'll do this from time to time, kind of design breakdowns and kind of the amount of thought that went into the design really makes you not just appreciate the shoe, but appreciate the price. Where this is a guy who spent a year going to Italy to check out materials. Like he wanted it to be, his concept was American luxury. So he went to go see luxury. Then he would go to like Bass Pro Shops and look at like the wader boots that you wear for fly fishing. And he kind of combined this like kind of blue collar American aesthetic with like kind of Italian design for something that was totally unique. And I don't think it was until I kind of heard Jerry Lorenzo talk about that I really appreciated like, hey, there's a reason some of this stuff costs what it does, because these are the best designers in the world using the best materials in the world and sparing no expense to create the best product in the world. And say what you will, kind of, I think there's a lot of cases people can make about consumption and how people spend their money, but just appreciating the art, the craftsmanship and care that went into it is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I love that. And it is a kind of an art appreciation thing. It's not like you can tell that this man is inspired and has a gift because it's not just shoes that he puts out, but most of the stuff he puts out is pretty popular. And it's not just like, some of it may be pushing the limits a little bit, but most of it is not just hype. Like, oh, this is good looking stuff that seems to be well made.
Yeah.
And I mean, the man is pretty bold about his faith from what I can tell. And to your point, or to your list earlier, he also did collaboration with Vans that if you go and try to find some Fear of God Vans, they're very expensive because there's very few pairs that are dead stock still. And they're pretty cool looking too. Like his patterns that he put on the Vans were really, really cool. And he's got relationships with all these pastors too, where I've had several posts where guys were wearing the Nike Air Fogs before they even came out. And I was like, well, that's a double flex. Dude. It's like, not only be able to get them, but to be able to get them beforehand and wear them on stage the same weekend that they
we see what you're doing.
They sell out immediately.
All right.
So, but shout out to Jerry Lorenzo, man.
Oh yeah, totally. I love what he's doing. I love Essentials. Like it is a kind of cool vibe he's got going. All right, Ben, before I let you go, man, let's how about this? before, there's a lot of people who will look at kind of preachers and sneakers and rightly have kind of a critical eye towards some pastors, but I do feel like you're very fair-minded in the whole presentation, and it's also like you're saying earlier, these guys are voluntarily wearing this stuff on stage. So how about before we go out, give me your top, if you're back in the scenario where you were, you can't make it to church, you're going to fire up YouTube, okay? And you're going to listen to a sermon. Like, no, not clowning at all. Like, if you had to pick three preachers, like sneakers aside, that is kind of your go-to, just like, hey man, I missed church, I'm going to need a quick, good, solid sermon. If you had to pick three preachers that would end up in your YouTube search, who would they be?
I would have to say my guy, Jonathan Pokluda in Waco. He used to be at Watermark here in Dallas. That people call him JP. He's really solid, and I'm a big fan of his. And he's helped with the book. I stole some of his ideas with pride for the book. I mean, I cited him appropriately, but he's been a huge influence in my life. So he's consistently bold about what he believes and aligns it with scripture. Another guy I really like that I don't know is Ben Stewart. And I think he preaches in DC maybe, but he's kind of this minimalist guy. I think he was at A&M for a long time and had a following there, but he's really solid. People have their opinions about Matt Chandler. Yeah. But I really appreciate his preaching and think that he's gone through it, like gone through all kinds of crazy stuff in life and has continued to be really solid in terms of leading his church and his faith and his preaching and all that stuff. And so I've gotten a lot out of his preaching. Yeah. There's people have critiques of him from stuff he's done in the past. So be it, such as like saying things in a Christian context. I'm happy to engage with people about that, but he's probably the third for me. If I have to like out of nowhere Google a sermon, it's probably one of those three dudes. Well, the great thing about Matt Chandler too, I don't think he's in any danger of landing up on Preachers and Sneakers because he's not. His uniform is like, Gap. It's a lot of khaki, a lot of polos, a lot of tucking in. Like, even if he was wearing really great sneakers, you'd be so distracted because he was yelling at you the whole time. So his like the most extreme sneaker he has is like a New Balance. That's right. Like that. Matt Chandler strikes me as like just a New Balance type of guy, and it's not a dig. Yeah, exactly. That's like, ooh, I don't know. I can't wear these topsiders or whatever. That's right. Well, Ben, this was fun, man. I definitely encourage people to check out the book, Preachers and Sneakers, Authenticity in an Age of For-Profit Faith and Wannabe Celebrities. And if you're not already following, who's not following? You got, the whole world. Joel McHale. Real quick, before we go, how did you and Joel McHale hook up? Because I saw him, this was the first time I was like, oh, dude, McHale's a Preachers and Sneakers follower. We had interviewed him in Relevant, and I knew he's a Christian. I knew, kind of his story, but he was hosting like a video game awards ceremony, and he was wearing the Preachers and Sneakers hoodie. And I was like, oh, dope. How did you guys hook up? Because he wrote the foreword for the book, right? He did, yeah. And he was very kind to do that. We started talking in the DMs within weeks of starting the account, and because somebody had sent him the account or something, and he was a huge fan of the whole thing. And the only reason I have merch today is because he messaged me about that. He was playing in a celebrity Fortnite tournament. Yeah. And he messaged me after we had kind of been talking back and forth. And he was like, hey, I'm playing in this Fortnite tournament. Can I wear one of your sweatshirts for the tournament? And I was like, yeah, man, let me get back to you. Yeah. And so I literally scrambled this design together, and that's what that hoodie was. It was like, look, this guy's about to be on a huge stage and has to wear a hoodie. So you can, that video is still up there if you Google Joel McHale Fortnite or something. Yeah, I saw it like out in the wild. I was like, I can't remember what I was watching, but I was like, this shouldn't be a thing. Like, he shouldn't care about this, and my hoodie should not be on him. But it was a cool, I guess. Yeah. Cross-pollination of culture. Yeah. Well, hey, and if people want to read his foreword in the book, they can definitely check it out. Ben, this was fun, man. Let's hope you get those. Appreciate you, man. I hope you get those Nike Air Yeezys soon. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Here's to hoping. But Jesse, I appreciate you, man. You too, man. This was fun. All right, everyone, that is it for this episode of List It on the Ironclad Content Network. Hey, if you like the show, I know every podcast asks you to do it, but it really does help. If you like the show, leave a rating and review. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.